Go ahead and call to session the October 11th meeting of the Design Review Board, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on our agenda this morning is the approval of the September 13th minutes. I reviewed them and did not see any notes or changes. Any other comments?
No comments.
Okay. And I motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 And all those opposed say no. Okay. And the minutes from the September 13th board meeting have been approved. And the first item on discussion review for the agenda today is the Oriole Lane apartment.
Good morning, Design Review Board. For the record, Janine Harrington, Director of Planning for the town. So the project that is before you today is a concept drawing, and they are looking for feedback and discussion from the Design Review Board so they can continue with the design process before bringing this forward with an official application. So this project is the Oriole Lane apartments that are proposed. It's back behind where the Marie's Diner is. There's the Pepsi plant, and it's just behind that and adjacent to the existing Jamestown and Hawthorne Green Section 1 residential units. So the proposed development is 3 buildings with 120 units across those 3 buildings. One will be senior age restricted and the other 2 will not be age restricted. They've already gone to the Board of Appeals and gotten approval for the age restricted units for the property. So for the conceptual drawings that they provided, they give you an overview about the buildings with the massing and scale, the different roof forms and materials, including fiber cement panels, brick masonry, Energy Star qualified vinyl windows. They talk about using top quality foam fiberglass with unit entry doors. They are not proposing any shutters. Awnings and canopies are not being incorporated. For the trim, they're looking at fiber cement or cellular PVC trim boards and fiberglass-based architectural grade asphalt shingles. For the colors, there's an overall neutral palette, although I did have a question on the 2 plans. The one for the senior building looks like it has a different color scheme than the non-age restricted, so I'll let the applicant speak to that in a minute. But overall, foundation will be traditional red, brown brick masonry, white trim details, and with the roof natural gray to go around with the neutral facade. Otherwise, I will turn this over to the applicant to kind of discuss in more detail what their vision is and what they're proposing with this application.
Good morning. I'm Staci Lagana, Larenzi, Dodds, and Gunnill. And with me, I have Tyler, who is with the actual applicant with Osprey Development. I have Michael Blake, and I have Martina Reilly. Did I get everybody? I think I did. And
you've
Michael,
also got Staci. You've also got Brian.
Lopez okay, Brian's
with Osprey. So
with Osprey as well. Okay. And Michael and Martina are with the architect. So Janine did a pretty good job of the site overview. I'll just point out a couple other things. We have sufficient buffering on site. We have a 50-foot buffer yard to the south along our neighboring Jamestown neighborhood. We're also proposing a clubhouse, a playground, quite a bit of landscaping on site, sufficient parking, your typical site layout. The thing that's unique with this site that I really like is there's quite a bit of open space. We don't see that with very many sites nowadays, but this site is very has plenty of open space. So, but I know that you guys want to hear more about the architectural aspects, so I'll turn it over to Michael and let him kind of run with that.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? Hopefully the background noise doesn't interfere. So again, Janine did a great job of highlighting the materials. In terms of the architecture, I guess we would characterize it as contemporary or traditional in nature, very sympathetic to the surrounding residential neighborhood in terms of its roof forms, some of the detailing, the sort of the window proportions. These are multifamily apartments, so obviously the massing and scale is proportional to the size of the building. In terms of the color palette, there was a mention of differentiation between the senior building and the family buildings. We typically do that with multi-building developments, just to provide some variety, some visual change of visual interest, and so that's really the reason for that. We're not necessarily wedded to the particular colors, but we like the idea of having a variety of color options for different buildings.
Janine, are we able to see the diagrams that they submitted on the screen, please?
So this is the age restricted.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, right. So, I mean, in terms of the material treatments, the family and senior buildings have similar use of materials in terms of gable ends, having a board and batten profile just to provide a change of interest. And both buildings have a brick, predominantly brick base with some brick rising up higher in the elevations. And then a horizontal lap siding for sort of the main areas of the building. And then on the senior building, we've got a little bit more what we call, it's fiber cement, but it's larger panel with battens. Just because of the scale of the building, it seemed to lend itself better than a horizontal lap siding. Now the family buildings, I don't know if you've got that handy that we can go to. Right, we're using more of the lap siding as the predominant siding treatment, although in the sort of the entrance breezeway gable ends, we've got a board and batten treatment on both sides of the building. So that just kind of highlights a different, the entry point in a different part of the building.
And excuse me, the multifamily building will not have any balcony spacing or open spacing, just the senior?
That is correct.
And Janine, are we able to see a site plan?
So to the south of the site, this will be the senior units. And then the regular non-age restricted units will be to the north of the site and the proposed clubhouse as well.
Do you propose connecting the little alleyway to this, to have access to the site? That's, I guess it's behind the dash in.
No, we're not proposing to connect to any of the commercial up front along 301. We're running from Oriole Lane through to Magnolia.
Okay.
So, Janine, what aspects of this project would you like our comment on?
The architectural drawings about the materials, colors, fenestration, roof form, any of the architectural details, and if you have any comments or insight for the applicant on their proposed design.
Well, I think going back to the site plan, I would like to offer a bit of guidance and preference about how specifically the senior housing building is sited. Since this is a building along Oriole Street, I would prefer to have the building relate to the street rather than a parking lot. I think it would be quite lovely to have the building fronting the street. I think it would be as simple as just flipping the building. Architecturally, what you all have proposed is just fine. It's nothing extraordinary, it's nothing spectacular, but it gets the job done and it's respectable. I think my concerns about the siting of the building is, I understand it's far more along the lines of the planning board to comment on those issues, but I do get tired of seeing parking lots being built in our town, and that's the first thing you see when you come to the site is a parking lot. So take it or leave it. But again, the design of the buildings, they're garden style apartments, and you can dress them up with different types of siding and brick. And the siding and brick that was chosen fits within a design review board guidelines, so it fulfills its requirements as a building.
Yeah, I agree with color, brick, the color of the siding. I can't say that I like the two different colors between the two buildings. I think the buildings look different in terms of how they are architecturally. I'm not sure that color really makes. I mean, I barely see the green in the senior living building. I do agree with David with the parking lot being the first thing you see when you come up Oriole Lane on that side. Excuse me. But otherwise it's a multi-level, multi-family apartment building.
Right. It's an apartment building. It's fine.
I think there's ways of articulating buildings like this where they don't have to appear as an apartment building. You can begin to articulate it as if it's multiple buildings put together, almost like row houses. Trying to break up that mass, because at this size of a building is really not contextual in that area. I think you'd have to really expand your horizons about what precedents you're looking at in order to find good precedent for that. But it is out there. It's just a matter of looking for it. But even regardless of that, again, it still gets its job done. It's a garden style apartment, and it is what it is. So it would not be my preference, but it's what's being presented to us, so I'm commenting on that.
And I would also indicate that maintaining similar colors between all of the buildings within the community.
Hi, this is Mayor James. It's been a while. I sat on the DRB, boy, Amy, how many years ago? So it's been at least 7 years. So thank you for having me here. I wanted to ask what, I have a lot of questions. So, Staci, buckle up, I'm here. What was the reasoning behind making the parking lot on, to face Oriole versus having the apartments facing Oriole?
I really think that we were looking at this as a transition from the commercial uses to the residential uses. So just, having those buildings kind of lined up the way that they are, just, it made sense with the site layout. We do have, where that parking lot is, we have a 50-foot buffer yard, which we're hoping to keep between that parking lot and Jamestown. We have a 50-foot buffer yard that we're hoping to keep a lot of that in permanent forest conservation and preserve the forest that's there. So we thought that that was kind of sufficient buffering on that side of the site, and keeping the actual building, the structure that's a little bit taller towards the commercial side of the site. So we felt that it was a appropriate transition from the Jamestown residential single family homes to the buffer yard, to the parking lot, and then the building. That was the main thought.
So my concern though is like when we're talking about new development going into our town, we want beautiful, well thought through buildings that add to a sense of place. We're creating places, spaces. Yes, we are a suburb, but we want to look at this as if we're creating places and spaces. Now, think about where you go, throughout this area or wherever area you live, and they're typically nice places that you go to. You don't typically go to buildings that have parking lots in front of them. You go to small towns, or you go to large towns or cities where buildings are up on the street and you begin to create spaces and places. So I think that's what our concern is. We would like to not have a bunch of new parking lots built along the streets. The buffer, of course, is a good idea between this building and the residential built houses next to it. That is what it is too. I think a lot of us would just like to see developers coming into our town trying to think outside the box, and not just build another mundane garden style apartment building surrounded by parking lots.
And Staci,
Again, I understand a lot of that conversation needs to happen with the planning board and not with the design review board, but I think the design aesthetic of the building, again, it is what it is, and I can't help but feel the way I feel about what this project is.
Sure. And we thank you for your
I'm sorry, David, you keep on saying it is what it is. You're an architect. What don't you like about it that you can give from your perspective? Now, they may not take it as, changing it, but what are you not thrilled about with these?
Well, when I keep using the term garden style apartments, it's just the style of, well, that's the type of building form that it is. And there's different ways of dressing those massing. When I worked for David M. Shore's Architects, we did a lot of this type of buildings throughout the country. And you can begin to articulate the buildings so that they feel like smaller buildings put together. You can have more ground level access. Definitely the way it's cited on the site is a big concern. Like I've tried to explain. We're creating spaces.
Well, might have lost you, David. All right. Well,
I think I lost connection there for a second, but
got you back.
You could do things like where the ground level units are accessible from the street, so it's a walk-up unit, and then the upper units are accessible from a hallway. There's lots of different ways of rejiggering some of these projects to make them a little bit more interesting, a little bit more dynamic, and how because you want to try to create these active streets they're fun to walk along and pleasant with street trees and sidewalks. And you're walking from, even if it is the Pepsi plant, you might want to walk to your lovely senior housing building, and you walk to the building and not through the parking lot, then to the building. And perhaps there is more connection between the site and the other commercial properties. So if I wanted to live there and go to Marie's Diner every morning, I could just walk there and not have to drive, not have to walk through forest and fences. It's all about, all of our new buildings and properties that are being developed, thinking of them holistically in our town and how they really improve the town and not just fulfill a bottom dollar. I understand as developers, you're trying to make a profit. I understand that. I respect that. So there's a lot to consider.
Well, and especially since La Plata is building quite a few apartment complexes right now, and you need to be unique. What is going to why is someone going to come to your apartment complex versus the three that are being built right now? And I do appreciate your perspective, David. That's what your world that you're in. I do like the fact that the suggestion of having the apartment closer to the Oriole Lane versus a parking lot. But depending on what the buffer is, if the buffer buffs out, the one that's on Oriole Lane, if it is totally woods and you can't see it, much like some of the other places in La Plata, then that's fine. But you don't necessarily want to go in a parking lot. And then the one thing I've got to say that is really difficult is I'm a very tactile kind of person, and I want to see actually the paint colors in person and feel all of that. So maybe moving forward we can consider. I thought we were meeting in person today, so wow. Okay, maybe about that, because it is something when you are presenting a color. I know this is just a concept, but to actually see the color in person, and boy, can a computer change things. So whereas we're looking at browns here, your brown is very different than maybe the brown that is actually put on to the apartment complexes. I heard you say with the senior housing, they're the ones that are going to have the balconies, but the multifamily are not. Is that true? Is that what we're understanding?
Correct.
And I'm just asking questions. I'm not opposing or for it, but what is the reasoning behind that?
Michael, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak, it's not really an architectural choice wholly. It's an operational choice as well. So, we've had more success with not putting balconies in family apartment buildings, just because they're not used the way a senior balcony might be used. So we'd rather capture the space within the unit and provide more area within the unit.
So this is a picture right now that we have up. This looks like
this is of the senior. Yeah, this is of the senior building. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say that one looks like the balconies there. So it has the different depths there when you're looking at it. You pop out a little bit with the balconies, and if the seniors are, well, I now qualify as a senior, and so I do like the balconies, and that's what I go for on a cruise ship too. But that extra space where it is being outside and enjoying that. Kelly, can you put up the one that is the family one? Okay, so to me, and this one still has a balcony, no?
No, those areas, those large areas in the center, those are actually the access to the unit. So that goes to what we call breezeway, which is an open area where there's stairs leading to the floors above, and then the actual unit doors to the units are off of those breezeways.
If I can be so blunt, Staci, you're not going to stop me. But it kind of looks like it's unfinished. And I know that you have said that you're not putting up shutters, and shutters may have been a day of old and maybe more modern. Maybe I'm dating myself, but it doesn't have much character.
No
It
visual
has,
interest, it just
blur.
looks
yeah, it does. It looks very flat on there. That's a good way of saying. I mean, the colors, and perhaps when it's in person, it will look different. You know, with you can see the depth, but it is very much what I see there is a blank canvas that absolutely it doesn't have any character really. It's just kind of putting it's windows and doors. It's there. Maybe even putting, and David, this is where you come in, but maybe putting dormers over the where the stairs are to give it a pop on that, or something. But it looks very
yes, yeah, you're articulating. There's an issue with these types of buildings where there's all four sides of the building are, you know, a front, you know, because they're surrounded by park and parking lot. If a building is up against the street, there's a front to the building, so therefore you can really lavish your money on the front of the building, and the rear and the sides of the building don't necessarily have to be quite so elaborate. So therefore you can put more of your design money into that front and really design the heck out of it. Maybe it's the entire front is brick and the sides are only siding, except for, you know, 3 feet at the base. You know, it's that sort of stuff where you can begin to spend your money more wisely, or distribute your money more wisely around the facade, really creating these special places on the facade.
Yeah, well, based on this, the site plan, we basically have two, as you mentioned, two fronts to this building. So there's the front facing the parking where the residents will, you know, park. And then there's the other side facing the large open space that then connects to the community building. So there's two facing sides that need to have, at least in our view, an equal treatment in terms of the materials used and some of the architectural features. So
looking at the elevation we're looking at right now, you can to redistribute the materials that you have, where those two entrance pavilions with the gables, maybe those become entirely brick, and maybe the rest of the brick only happens below the water table at the lowest window. So you have a nice clean line, and instead of this jagging up and down. I don't quite, stylistically, it doesn't fit any style. There's not a really strong cornice line. You need to beef up the cornice line and give it some kind of, besides just a gutter, maybe it has a nice cornice and actual moldings. Because these sort of projects are neither classical nor are they contemporary. So as a designer, that's where I really want to vomit, because let's look at some real strong precedents of design. And if it's going to be classical, let's make it classical. If it's going to be modern, go for it, make it modern. I'm not opposed to modern. You know, take off the asphalt roof and make it modern. Do something really cool. You know, that's how you might attract people. Like this in between design stuff is really boring. You know, but if you go classical, you know, do your research and make sure that it's right. You know, there's proportions. All the windows are the exact same size except for those little tiny side windows on the side bays. You know, that's not how you design a facade. Windows need to have different sizes. You know, when I was in architecture school, this would get an F. I'm sorry, but it would. It's uninspired and unimaginable. You know, but
I don't think it has the charm yet of what La Plata is about. Yes, it's going to be more towards the commercial area and Oriole and 301 area, but it doesn't have that charm. It really, to me, really does look like a blank slate. Now, could you embellish it maybe with some type of public art or something like that? Maybe so, and start incorporating some of the elements that we are working so hard to incorporate in the downtown area. Yes, but even things like changing where it says number 10, that area, maybe making it, you know, more robust with pillars or something. But right now, as I said, it really looks like it's the start, but it's not the completed one. It has it lacks character.
Thank you for that's why we're here. That's why we came early in the process to get your all's feedback. You know, we're at the fairly early stages. This isn't necessarily a formal application, so you know, thank you very much. This is why we're here. So this is all good feedback. As far as you know, we will come back and we can definitely do an in-person meeting. I agree with you as far as color boards and things like that. That sometimes in person is the better way to do it. This, you know, like I said, this was just a kind of a concept meeting to get your initial feedback, and I'm glad we did it. Because I think you all had some good suggestions and things. So, you know, and like I said, next time we can definitely come before you in person with actual color boards and things that you can actually see, because sometimes they do look different than on the screen.
If I could also go back to the site plan, the way the buildings are in place, I understand that having the two buildings, the multifamily at their location with the green space in front of that is good. The problem is the senior building seems to be detached from the green space. Most of the units for the senior building are facing the Pepsi plant. If you just turn that a quarter, the senior building a quarter, although they'd be facing a parking lot still, they would have more vision of the green space. And as a senior with those lovely balconies, residents may want to sit on their balcony and watch the children play in the playground or whatever. That the senior building just seems to be a little disconnected to the community and that green space.
Yeah, by putting the parking lot to the back of that may, I mean, it opens it up a little bit more as far as the feeling of not being so closed in and separated.
When you say the back, do you mean against the commercial, like against the Pepsi plant area?
You know, just flipping it like David had suggested, and so those two areas, so it's a whole open space, and that will lend itself to a lot of other things too, what you can do with that parking lot. And, you know, I think of, you're right, Betty, for people sitting out on the balcony watching the kids play and all of that. That's a neat idea too. There's so many concepts.
I love the balconies, but you're sitting on the balcony, you're either looking at the back of the Pepsi plant or a parking lot. If it's turned a quarter, then maybe more of they'd have more option to see the green space and you know, kids playing while they're sitting on their balcony, which I love the balconies, but
I like the senior housing. I think the senior housing does have character, you know, with the balconies and the different dimensions and the, you know, popping out. And as I said, I have to see the colors in person in order to really appreciate them. But I think that one to me was, well, and I don't mean to be insulting at all, so please don't take this as an insult. But this one was the one that was, you know, the premiere. This was taken, a lot of time was spent on this, a lot of thought, and then it kind of looks like the multifamily one was, okay, we'll just put those in there. Not as much thought and love as in with the proposed senior housing. Just my opinion. Someone else has their hand raised, Amy.
Yeah, I don't see it.
I'm sorry, that's my hand. This is Kelly Fetch from Legislators. I just had an admin question. If we could have the those who appeared on behalf of the applicant introduce themselves and their firm name before we close out the conversation. That's all, just for the record.
Thank you. So if everybody would like to introduce themselves that is here on behalf of the client, that would be greatly appreciated.
I'll go first. My name is Tyler Grote. I'm with Osprey Property Company. We're the applicant and part of the development team for this one.
And I'm Brian Lopez with Osprey Property Company as well, part of the developer for the project.
Sure, I'll go. Michael Blake, principal with Moseley Architects.
I'm Martina Reilly, Senior Associate with Moseley Architects.
Thank you. I think that was everyone. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's input and comments today on this future project, and we look forward to seeing what is developed out of it. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and being proactive. I appreciate that for one. Instead of having you guys go back to the drawing board, I never want to waste anybody's time, money, or effort. So coming here early is, and you heard what was some of the suggestions that were made. So, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us as well. I appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate it. And I guess just as a follow up, if we'll obviously take a lot of all these suggestions into account, and there's some great ideas. Is there a way to get back in touch with you? Is there if we want to get just a little bit of feedback, should we reach out to anybody specific in order to run some thoughts through?
You would reach out to me,
Okay.
and I can be the in-between for any future subsequent discussions with the DRB.
Sounds good.
And I would encourage you, if you have questions, especially, I think David was very kind and not as so specific. I think that David had some really great ideas that can be articulated more on paper if you are interested in his perspective on that. But yeah, by going through Director Harrington, that's a great way. But I encourage the open line of communication so that you are not spinning your wheels only to come back to be shut down.
Yeah, agreed.
I agree. I welcome that as well, and very gladly would consult, or and also just to point out that we're absolutely not anti-growth. We're very pro-growth and pro-development, and excited for this project, and really want it to be as excellent as possible for all parties involved.
All right, very good. No, we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. The next item on our agenda for today is Planning Department updates.
I don't have too much for you in the way of project updates. We haven't really gotten too much in for Design Review Board. I will point out a couple things that we've got a new website if you haven't noticed that yet. So if you go to the town's website, you'll see that it's laid out a little bit different, a little bit more user-friendly. We did recently become a bee city. And so you'll start noticing some new things happening around the town. A giant bumblebee, might be visiting different places. Otley the pollinator. But that's really all I have, unless you have anything specific to ask me.
Well, Mayor James brought up the point about in-person meetings. Do we want to go ahead and go back to in-person meetings?
This would be a good time to make that determination. And that's, if we can get a consensus from the board, if everyone is good with coming back into person. Obviously I am. I'm already here.
I'm fine. I'm good with it. I think it would be easier.
I think it would be more appropriate, I think, for these applicants to sense the formality, I guess, of what we're trying to accomplish for our town. And I always find myself trying to multitask as I'm driving to, meetings or site projects or whatever. So I'd like to be able to force myself to focus more on this.
I'm fine with it. I just say that I am disappointed I'll have to put pants on, but
There is no judgment. Maybe just a little bit. But I remember the days when Amy and I would be, we were literally touching the different types of wood, and Bob, God rest his soul, would be, this is flimsy, that kind of thing. So that's the thing that I look forward to, because David, as an architect, you know the material as well. And it's one of those, and you're right, I didn't want to say it in front of those guys. Make them get their tiny down here to town hall and actually, be part of the process instead of being virtual. And we did that with the planning commission as well, having them come in, because these are very important. Not to say none of the other commissions are important, but these are so important to the development and the look of our town.
Correct.
okay, so I promise I will have pants on and I won't wear a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
All right, the next meeting, we will make sure to change that to in person.
Okay. I do have a question. I am going to assume that the changeover from Community Bank and to Shore United, all of that signage was run through the town and
Yes.
approved. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I figured, and I was like, well, I'm sure they know what to do, but
And what a headache as a personal customer and a business client of the bank.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Oh,
I liked our old debit cards better than the new ones.
exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And opening my online banking and seeing 5 accounts on my business all having 0 balances. And they were like, wait, just give it a minute. It'll be there. And so all of this side of the gray hair is from that. So bless their hearts.
all right. Thank you. Council updates from Mayor James.
Well, I do have some updates. First of all, I am absolutely thrilled to be back sitting on the DRB. That was one of the highlights. That's what I guess actually kicked off my interest in the town, was serving, giving back by having a lot of opinions. And you know what? It's the way we shape our town. Doesn't mean that I'm right, but David, I really appreciate you held back, man. I was hoping a little bit more. So I think you were probably being kind and easing in, being this my first day, but you do have some great ideas. Busy around town. If you, as Janine has said, Polly the pollinator is pollinating all over this town, and we had a great fall festival. Farmhouse Cafe and Creperie opens today. So that has been years in the making. And then Coffee Bean XYV. That one is over by Giant, in the Giant parking lot. And it's a little different. They said it is more than just a place to get your daily caffeine fix. It's a hub of warmth, togetherness, and community spirit. So they're open from 9 to 7:30, but they have every Wednesday, you're grooving to Motown sounds. They are doing adult hand dancing class. It's just intriguing. And they use that as community space, and they host special events, and they have children's happy hour twice a month. It is just a unique space. I haven't had their coffee yet, so I'm excited to try that. As a town, we continue to work with the county, trying to make this a more walkable town. We are met with some resistance because, as you know, right now the county is in-house fighting, so it's not been moving as quickly as I would like. hopefully there is an end to that. As with any brother or sister, mom and dad finally step in and say, knock it off. And I think it's going to be sooner than later. And then I do have, Kelly, when we are ready to adjourn, just a little tribute to our buddy Jim. We buried him on Monday. It was tough to say goodbye to him. I really thought that he was going to beat this. He did beat cancer. It was the strokes that finally got him, but he did serve our country and our town well, and he will be greatly missed. So I hope that I can do half the job that he has done by sitting with you guys here. So that's my report. And Kelly, when if you're ready, you can, when Amy's done, just put that 2-minute video up.
Well, thank you so much. Well, I'll motion to approve. I'll motion to adjourn today's session of the Design Review Board meeting. If there are no other. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right. This meeting of the Design Review Board is now adjourned.
Sorry, I'm getting there. It won't let me share the accompanying music, which is probably just as well because we do not all want to be in tears.
Yeah, that one did get me.
That would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
You all have a great week.
Everyone have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
you too.
Good
Bye.
to see you.